This video is going to give you sort of an overview of the nervous system, which is probably my favorite system of the body. Remember, the nervous system's job is to communicate. It's for transmitting information. It's a whole network in the body that's kind of controlling everything, and it's transmitting that information from one area of the body to another area of the body. It's going to control release of hormones, it's going to control muscles, all that. It works both chemically and electrically. Okay, so for transmission of the information, it requires that some chemicals are released, and also there is electrical activity, actual electricity traveling. The nervous system itself is composed of a bunch of different kinds of cells, but the main ones that are transmitting information are called neurons. Now, there are two parts to the nervous system. Two main parts. There's the peripheral nervous system. Peripheral means on the outside. So I'm going to abbreviate it PNS. It contains the nerves of the body, those going out and those coming back, all those nerves. There's also the central nervous system. I abbreviate that CNS, and it contains, the central nervous system is mainly the brain, is what it contains, and then it's also the spinal cord that runs down the middle of your vertebral column. So here's a diagram illustrating the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system consists of your brain and the spinal cord running down. The peripheral nervous system is all of these nerves running out to all parts of your body. Let's talk a little more about the peripheral nervous system, the PNS. The nerves for the peripheral nervous system emerge from the brain, or they emerge from the spinal cord, either or. So there are 12 different nerves that emerge from the brain and a bunch more that emerge from the spinal cord. There are two kinds of nerves that are emerging, somatic nerves and autonomic nerves. The somatic nerves carry information that we are consciously aware of. So either it's something we feel, that's be our sense, maybe we hear it, we see it, or it's something that we decide to do, such as walking, so using your muscles to talk, using your muscles to run, to play basketball. It's things that we are consciously aware of and controlling. The autonomic nerves are different. Think of autonomic as automatic, things that happen automatically that you don't have to think about. They are unconscious, meaning we don't think about them. They just happen on their own. Things like your heart beating, your digestion, your breathing, release of hormones in the body. You don't think of those things. They just happen automatically. Those are controlled by the autonomic nerves. Now, of the autonomic nerves, there are two different types. There are those that are called sympathetic and those that are parasympathetic. The sympathetic nerves help us to respond to a stressful situation. It's called the fight or flight, meaning that in this situation, whatever it is, whatever the stressful situation is, you either have to fight to survive or you have to run away. Flight means to run away. So however your body needs to respond, the sympathetic system is dealing with that kind of fight or flight situation. The other side, the parasympathetic system, is sort of the opposite of that. When there's no stress, you're just relaxing and things are going fine, that's the parasympathetic system that's getting involved. We call that rest and digest. So when you think about all the things that are involved with just chilling out, resting, and also the ability to digest your food and take it in and utilize it, this is all the job of the parasympathetic autonomic nervous system. So here's a summary. I don't think you have to know all of these, but at least be aware of some of them. The parasympathetic rest and digest system constricts pupils, stimulates saliva, and slows your heart rate, constricts your airways, stimulates activity of the stomach, stimulates the gallbladder, stimulates the intestines, and contracts the bladder. The sympathetic or fight or flight system does opposite things. It dilates the pupils, inhibits salivation. That's why your mouth feels dry when you're nervous or stressed out. It increases your heart rate. It relaxes your airways so more air can come in. It inhibits the stomach, so sometimes when you have a stressful situation, you get a stomach ache because your stomach is not digesting properly. It inhibits activity of the intestines, and it relaxes the bladder, and what that means is sometimes it makes you feel like you have to use the bathroom when you feel stressed out or nervous about something. So that's a summary of the activity of the parasympathetic and sympathetic nerves. Now the somatic nerves, these are now the other set, not the autonomic, but the somatic. They're involved in movement and then also perception. Some somatic nerves are involved in these quick automatic responses that we call reflexes. So reflexes are things that happen automatically and quickly, although we are aware of them, so they're part of the somatic nervous system. They don't require the brain, which makes them really fast, and they're usually something that protect us. For example, we sneeze because something has gone up our nose. We don't have to really plan out that we're going to sneeze. It kind of happens automatically. Same with blinking. It protects you from your eyes drying out for one, but also it protects you from something coming towards your eye. So these are protective in function, and they don't require the brain. They just go through the spinal cord. Here's an example of a reflex. This is one that's called the withdrawal reflex. And in this reflex, it happens when you touch something painful or hot. So you touch something painful or hot, and there are sensory receptors in your finger that quickly send a signal up to your spinal cord. This represents a section of your spinal cord. And that cell tells this little interneuron cell that, ouch, something hurt. And this little interneuron cell tells this other neuron, this motor neuron, that, hey, move your hand. And so then the signal goes out to this little muscle in your arm, and it causes you to pull your hand back. None of this happens in the brain. This is all happening quickly without you having to think about it, so that you move your hand quickly. Imagine if this had to go all the way up to the brain. That would be several more cells. It would slow it way down, and it would be not quick enough, and you would be burned badly. So these are protective. Reflexes are protective. All right, let's switch gears and talk now about the central nervous system. The central nervous system consists of the brain and spinal cord, as I told you. The brain is divided up into several different parts based on function. The base of the brain is called the brain stem. It includes structures called the medulla oblongata and the pons, which control vital functions such as heart rate and breathing. And the cerebellum, which is super cool, it coordinates movements. So when you learn a new skill, such as riding a bike or playing the guitar, at first you really have to think about it, but then over time you don't have to think about it so much. It sort of just comes naturally to you because the cerebellum has learned how to do that. It's the cerebellum that allows you to just automatically walk, automatically ride a bike, automatically play the guitar without thinking about it. So this diagram will show you the location of the medulla oblongata here in the base of the brain, the pons, which is located here, and then the cerebellum is this back portion of the brain that's kind of separated from the other large area, but we'll talk about all of these areas here in a minute. The middle part of the brain includes the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus's job is to control all of the hormones of your body, and then the thalamus, whose job is to kind of take in the sensory information from your eyes and your ears and your nose and coordinate all that and send it where it needs to go. So it's like a relay center. Then we have the outer wrinkled part of the brain, and it is called either the cerebrum or the cerebral cortex. And it's really involved in everything that makes us human beings. It's all the higher functions. So if we look again at our diagram, you see the thalamus here located right in the center of the brain. And then we have the hypothalamus, which is really, your nose would be somewhere, let me see if I can draw it. Your nose, your head would be something like this. Your nose is something like this, all right? So we're kind of right straight back behind your nose is where you'll find the thalamus and the hypothalamus here. And then, of course, the base here, your brainstem, your cerebellum, and then the big cerebrum covering most of your brain. The cerebrum, of course, is the part that makes us human. It can be divided into two halves. We call them hemispheres. And then each hemisphere has 4 lobes, and the lobes are based on function. We have found over time that the frontal lobes are mostly involved with higher thinking. So all of the sort of grown-up thoughts that you have about planning for the future and planning for college and all of that, that's your frontal lobes. And then also with motion, with movements, controlling movements for walking and all of that. Then we have the parietal lobes, which are right at the top of the head. They control your sense of skin, like your skin, hot, cold touch on your skin. And then also your perception of where your body is in space, where other objects are in space. You know, being able to drive is real. You really need your parietal lobes, you know, being able to navigate in the world. Your temporal lobes are a very important center for hearing, for processing speech, and also for making memories. And then your occipital lobes at the very back of the brain control all aspects of vision and allow us to see. So here we have the cerebrum, or the cerebral cortex. This huge portion is the frontal lobes. At the very top of the brain here, we have the parietal lobe. In the back, as I said, the occipital lobe. And then finally along the sides, along your temples, is the temporal lobe. And this is, again, the site of hearing and memory. Here is vision. Here is your senses and your skin sense and your sense of spatial awareness of the environment. And then we have our higher thinking along with movement. All right, so that's it for this one. Make sure you write your notes, and this is due on Monday.